You can absolutely conquer whatever it is you choose to confront. In this show, we talk PTG, we listen and believe, we support and empower. Hey, Garcia here. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Confronting Domestic Violence. What we cover is not intended to ignite any triggers. For what you want to conquer, you must confront. Today, I have two special guests with me, two teenage high schoolers that are willing to openly share their experience and talk about how they're making a difference in their community and soon to be the world. I can't believe that I have the privilege to talking to two beautiful young ladies today. Welcome, Anyanya and Gari.
Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Thank you so much for
Hi.
having us.
Yeah, this is an incredible opportunity to get our message and we're planning to take out to the world.
Absolutely. You guys are on the right platform for that. That is for sure. As you know, confronting domestic violence is all about making changes, identifying gaps, and figuring out a way how to fill those gaps. Like I said in the beginning, you cannot conquer what you will not confront. So I know that we talked quite a bit backstage, and there's a lot to cover today. And so I will allow you to start sharing your story wherever you feel most comfortable starting from.
Yeah, so unfortunately, last year I was a part of my school fall play, and during dress rehearsals, just 3 days before opening night, one of my castmates was a victim of sexual assault by another one of my castmates during dress rehearsals, like backstage. And this incident was super shocking to me, the victim, and of course, the entire ensemble. And it led to various student led protests within our high school, as well as various other high schools throughout the district. And through these protests, lots of our own classmates were speaking up about these unwanted experiences. And through these, like Ananya and I noticed how this wasn't just a single incident, but that many of our own friends and our own classmates were silently going through this issue, but were afraid to speak up because of all the stigma associated with it. And they feared that no one would be able to relate to their experiences. So, therefore, that experience kind of made us more interested in exploring this field and helping those who need help.
Yeah, and we started doing more research into what kind of resources were available to teens at the time. So we had like staff from like local organizations coming to our school and giving regular meetings. And despite all the fact that there were actually like genuinely kind adults willing to help kids, it's just many of them were scared, or otherwise unwilling to access these resources. And we decided that the best way to solve this was like providing more information and making access to that information easier. So, for example, someone might be, like Gary mentioned, about social stigma, or they might actually think that abusive behavior is normal or even romantic because they haven't properly been taught or they're not listening to the messages that helpful adults are trying to put out to them. So, we decided to create Safe Space, which is an app that it's it's an app that provides resources to, among other things, it connects you with national hotlines, and it has information about whether or not you're in an abusive relationship and even some self-care tools. And the special thing about our app is that it's disguised as a game, so that if you want to search up anything or do anything and you're just not sure that you want other people to find out just yet, you could do it in your own privacy. Or it could even be helpful in situations where you're scared that that someone may be looking at your phone. So if they would just see like a space game instead of an app that could connect you to 911 or other authorities if necessary.
How amazing is that? Wow. And for those that heard it but didn't quite hear it, Safe Space, SAFESPACE. And Ananya just said it looks like a space game. So, how smart is that to actually be able to be that covert in seeking help if you are in a real time situation feeling like you need help at that moment, you can actually get it without it being obvious.
Correct, yes.
And you said some really phenomenal things that I want to touch back on. So, first of all, you said that you didn't realize how many of your own peers have experienced something similar and felt and voiced that they had nowhere to go to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I ask, when you were stating that, adults and outside authorities came in to kind of educate and bring the awareness and talk to you guys about it, I'm assuming that this was after the announcement or after people learned of that sexual assault that took place. Is that safe to assume? Was that all of that took place after the event?
I feel like it's a part of their curriculum, so it is like throughout the year, but after this incident, they like kind of emphasized it much, much more. It was a much more serious issue then.
Okay, because I've been talking to some teachers actually and asking them what do they receive as it relates to training, especially in high schools, and what
Mm-hmm.
do teenagers have as it relates to a safe outlet or safe space to actually talk to somebody without feeling like their parents are going to be called, or without the reprimand, or like you were saying before, that social stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because this is the first time that I'm hearing that domestic violence and awareness is actually coming into the school system as part of the curriculum. We were actually talking about how to incorporate that and get it mandated. So I'm guessing that it's like up to the school if they want to. It's not a mandate, it's a choice.
Correct.
Yeah, there's also like again, like I said, local organizations. It wasn't exactly the teachers giving these lessons. Like they weren't necessarily trained for this. So counselors and like people from nonprofits would come in and give us like our state coalition against domestic violence. They host this activity called In Your Shoes. So they have volunteers from there who are trained in like giving these activities and these lessons who come and make us walk through it. And again, these activities they happen in our curriculum after the incident took place. So I'm not entirely sure if they were always a part of our curriculum or became a part of our curriculum because of the incident.
Right, right. And now, so this was last year that this took place. It's a year later, you guys are creating this app. You got your school and local schools to get together to do protests and bring more awareness. How is the culture and how is the knowledge now that, this incident has been brought to the attention of communities and yourselves? How has things shifted since then, if at all?
Obviously, like people like Anani and me, if this incident was kind of a realization, us realizing that this was a serious issue, and now we're trying to take active measures to like combat it. But overall, I still feel like little has been changed, to be honest, because checking back on my friend who was sexually assaulted, she's she's in a horrible state right now. She's going to therapy. She's just mentally, physically, emotionally like in a horrible state because after this incident, she faced immense amount of bullying. Lots of people thought that she was lying. She was calling for attention. And it just was truly heartbreaking to see her in a terrible position like that. Whereas the person who was the perpetrator of the violence, they essentially got let loose. No one really gave him any sort of punishments. And he honestly got this new like social clout. Like he would just gain more like popularity and all that while the victim unfortunately faced a lot of bullying. So it's really sad to see that this struggle is still there, that no one's really reaching out to her, giving her the help they need. But hopefully through our work, we can kind of shift that around.
And that really is the case with so many of us. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are, the violence being exposed to or being a recipient of definitely has that ripple long-term effect on that, emotional and mental, spiritual, I mean, any way, impact on us. And understanding how to work through the trauma and leveling up the coping skills does take time. And for your friend, my heart goes out to her, and I pray that she is receiving the help that is indeed out there. And, whether it's with the community or with organizations, is a great place for teenagers. There are a few others out there that I will definitely add into this show as resources, for other teenagers to go to. Sometimes it's hard to talk to parents, and it's really difficult going to the school and talking to the people that know what happened to you. That's your personal business. And it's nothing to be ashamed about, because the definition of being a victim, okay, is that you received something that you should not have received and it was out of your control. Okay. And then once you start working towards that healing process and accepting that it was out of your control and forgiving that person for their malicious acts, you're then growing to a place where you're no longer identifying as a victim, but you're identifying yourself as being victimized. Okay. And then as you continue to work through that healing process of forgiving them and forgiving yourself, because we beat ourselves up. We take the rap for what we were doing or what we could have been doing differently, and all these doubts and questions that run through our minds. And it takes a while, but keeping centered and grounded, and you being that good solid friend of support, checking in, seeing how they're doing, that definitely is a part of it. It takes a community and it takes friendships to help others through and help them rebound. And the help is out there. I mean, if you would like to send her to beyourincredibleself.com, her and her mom, that's definitely a great place where they can get additional help in what's taught as post-traumatic growth. A lot of people are familiar with PTSD, and that's what a lot of us carry when things unfortunate like that happen to us. And again, it's going back to leveling up those coping skills. And what you guys have done is an exact definition of that. Even though you were not the recipient, you were exposed to, and somebody that you love and care about is the recipient. And with that trauma, with that pain, you guys took that and turned it into something that will help so many other people. You guys are making history right now.
Yeah, that's so awesome for you to say, and like individuals like you, like doing all these amazing things with your nonprofit organization. I just feel like through everything that Anani and I have been doing and like our work in this field, one thing that we've noticed is that there's, especially with teenagers facing sexual assault and domestic violence, there's a sense of like a lack of trust with the authorities and adults, because especially like, going back to my friend, she would not want to like report this to the school or like talk to her counselors, because they like, there's this lack of trust, because whatever she says to them, they'll tell her parents, and obviously she doesn't want her parents to know all these things. And I feel like these adults, they, like my friends at least, they don't really like trust them that they would actually take the steps necessary. They just think that they'll make the problem worse. So hopefully as we continue working in this field, we bridge the gap between the youth and the adults and make it a more trusting relationship, so that the youth are more comfortable going out to adults and getting the help that they need. Because right now I think they're just scared and like they fear that nothing will happen.
I think part of it's also like a lot of people look at these adults as they're kind of gatekeeping those resources. Like if I go into a school building, if I want it off the top of my head, I didn't want to search it up because I know the district is looking at my search history, for example, on my school computer. I didn't want to like say if my parents were looking at my house school search history. So if I went to an office and picked up a flyer, these adults are kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say controlling, but I would say definitely holding that information. So I think part of what we want to do with Safe Space is what Gary said with like bridging the gap, but it's also trying to get people the information easily so they don't have to go through someone else to get it. And then they can make those decisions as to who to talk to, make those decisions informed with like more informations and more context so that it's smarter in the end.
You just raised a really interesting point. And to me, it sounded like it sounds like that the students feel as if what you just said, these adults are these gatekeepers, right? They have the information and they decide whether they want to give it out or not. And the information is actually resources that are helpful. And I'm wondering, based on that statement, is that to save face of the school? Because schools get, donations, schools need funding, schools try to stay out of the negative limelight. So if these are the activities that are happening on campus, are they trying to mitigate how much they offer in order to also kind of reduce the exposure of negative social media?
Saying that's what happens because, like, again, all the adults we've talked to so far, all the people working in the nonprofits, the counselors at our school are, again, like, they definitely want to do what's best for the students. But I definitely feel it's a sentiment that students have that these adults can't be trusted and that they don't feel comfortable talking to them about what they feel is their private matter. So I think, like, giving them a channel to, like, say, okay, so if I talk to the counselor, this is what will happen. So counselors are mandatory reporters, but nonprofits, they're not necessarily. So it's like helping them decide which route would be best for their situation before they actually go on that route is what I mean to say.
Yeah, I think the main issue with reporting, especially like in high schools, is that there's such a strict hierarchy within like the school district. There's like a strict bureaucracy because once a report is made, then it's gone. I'm not entirely sure how it is, but I think it goes to the counselor and then the parents are involved and then it goes up and up and up and there's all these different investigations and they like interview all these different people. And I feel like the victim at that point, like they've already been through the worst. I feel like they just don't have the mental and emotional energy to really take that further. And I guess that's the main reason they don't want to reach these adults because they know that it's a really laborious process. And in the end, they may or may not get what they want in the end. So might as well just keep it to themselves. And I feel like that's the main issue because it's just so challenging and so time consuming to get the reports up to where they want.
And I think Ananya made a really good point where, yeah, if we can get the outside entities, the nonprofit organizations, the individuals that have resources and that have a safe space for students to go to, knowing that they aren't going to have to fear any sort of, what's the right word that I'm looking for? Without having to fear any sort of ramifications, like contacting the parent or, blasting their information out. I mean, everybody, a coach, an individual, a counselor, it doesn't matter. We all do carry fiduciary responsibilities to report if you are in harm of hurting yourself or somebody else. If you are the one that is in harm's way, then everybody should be offering all the resources that they have available so you can get the help that you need in confidence. And I really love how your app is going to be incorporating so many of these resources because since COVID-19, a lot of funding for domestic violence kind of went away because everything had to go towards COVID-19. So now we're looking at different, individuals, corporations, or entities to kind of provide those resources. And I'm seeing more and more individuals stepping up and, being innovative and coming up with ideas on bringing that awareness and providing those resources. What you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What type of feedback are you guys getting from your peers?
I think so far from like peers our age, we've gotten feedback on how to implement the app, like how to get teens to use it. And from like adults and organizations, we actually have pages of features we want to incorporate in our second version that we got from local organizations that have given us feedback on stuff we can do, how to make it safer, and like potential disclaimers we'd have to add like having this app doesn't necessarily like protect you against hacking, for example. So like adding those stuff and disclaimers, those are the kind of tips we've got.
Wow. Amazing work. And I'm happy you guys are getting all the support to back up your vision and your mission and your dream. I see you guys taking this as far as it can possibly go. I see it making changes across the world. I mean, this is not just for the United States. An app is international, right?
Yes, that's the goal.
Yes. So I would love to actually, as soon as this launches, as soon as it's up and running, I would definitely love to have your guys' app on my resource page of the Confronting Domestic Violence website, if I have your permission to do that.
Oh my gosh, definitely. That would be
That
so
would be
awesome.
incredible.
Yes. And ladies, young ladies, you guys are making a change. You are making a change. This is a movement. We were talking backstage before and we were saying, society kind of turns their cheek. The support system is really not, really the support that you need real time. And it's been so long since the heavy protests and the rioting to make changes, have taken place. It's been since the 50s and 60s, before any of us were even thought of. And the Me Too movement fizzled out fast. And it's like, come on, the issue is not going anywhere. We have to confront what we want to conquer. And we're on this mission together, separate journeys, but the same mission. So it has been a true honor and pleasure being in the presence of you two young ladies doing this. And whatever we can do together, I would love to, continue this relationship and nurture it, because anything we can do together to mandate this type of education in the curriculum, in the school system, so that it's a blanketed mandate, not just preferential based on the district or based on incidences in the area. You ladies, the younger generation needs to understand this during high school and beyond, because as soon as you leave high school, whether you're going to university or in the world, people and these things are around. And if you don't know, how are you able to identify and respond?
Exactly. I think the main thing with this issue, rather than like other issues that many people are facing, is the great amount of stigmatization and stigma associated with it. Because obviously, like sex and all of that is not something a comfortable topic you want to talk about with your family or maybe even your friends, because then again, people think things about you in a negative way. So hopefully, through our work, by seeing like teenagers like me and Ananya taking the effort, like getting ourselves involved in this field, hopefully teenagers can realize that this is an issue that teenagers are facing. And if you are going through it, it's totally normal. And you need to get all the help you need without fearing like any like negative stigma associated with it. And just feel comfortable and know that there are other teenagers going through what you're going through, but that we're all there to help you.
You keep hitting on that word stigma, stigma, stigma. And I'm like, right, because the social stigma then like convinces you of having the same stigma for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not it. Social stigma is an opinion, and you'd be so surprised how many people have gone through a traumatic, violent situation. I mean, the statistics tell you 1 out of 3. Okay. As soon as somebody hears your story or a story similar to, we all want to help. We all want to pitch in. It's really, it's this perception of a stigma, but in reality, there's so many people that are willing to help and capable of helping that I kind of go old school and say a closed mouth is not going to get fed. Open your mouth and talk, and you will be surprised on what you receive back as it relates to support. So back to what you were saying, Gari, definitely don't feel like you have to be silent. You are not silenced in anything. You were given a voice for it to be heard. The days of being shut down and dismissed and disregarded and not believed are over.
Exactly. This is why I think like all these social media platforms, if you don't want to say like in person, like tweeting your story or like making an Instagram post or something, like hearing all these stories online kind of creates this community where people just feel much more comfortable like speaking up and not being silenced and understanding that you are not the only person going through this. There is like millions, unfortunately, going through this, but you are not alone. And I feel like through that, that's our ultimate goal with Safe Space.
Yeah, I think it's like
Absolutely.
trying to combat a very like what you said about speaking out. It's most people have like since a very young age, people are always convinced that getting a teacher or authorities or adults otherwise involved, especially if you're like a kid and you think you can resolve it yourself. It's just I think kids have a hard time recognizing when they're in over their heads. And even then, they don't want to make themselves vulnerable to try and like get the help they need. So it's not a matter of like lack of resources or so much stigma that nobody will hear you out. I think the world is hopefully a lot more supportive than we like to think it is, and it's a matter of getting the courage to try and find those people. And we want to make that process easier.
And you just said another word that I love so much, being vulnerable. You're right. That takes courage. It takes a lot to open up and be vulnerable. And for those that, maybe kind of go back and forth with that doubt or that insecurity of being vulnerable, understand, to all the listeners, you can be vulnerable and safe at the same time. Just because you're being vulnerable does not mean that you're putting yourself at risk or at jeopardy with your safety. It means that you care enough about what's going on and you're seeking support. And that is the only vulnerability that you're putting out there, is that you're asking for help. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay to do.
Exactly. And I feel like especially like for high schoolers, that's much more easier said than done because being in a position of vulnerability where as a teenager you care so much about other people's opinions, you care about like your popularity, what others will think about you. You're just so scared that if you're in a position of vulnerability, like all the attacks you'll get from other people saying this and that you just like close yourself off. You're scared to like kind of show yourself in that vulnerable position. But I feel like through these protests, seeing all these individuals sharing their vulnerable stories, I feel like that just kind of strengthened our school community at least, and I hopefully through other individuals, other listeners are much more vulnerable and not afraid about what other people might say, but are mature enough to understand that being vulnerable is the only way that we can get stuff done.
That's right. That's right. And listen, if we lived to satisfy everybody's opinion, none of us would ever be happy.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah. So you do what you feel is best for you and your situation, and do it because it's your life and you deserve to have what you want. And that is always, always to feel safe and be at peace. Wow, I really enjoyed having you guys today. I want you to please share any websites or social media handles. I have Instagram.com safe space app.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, well, I know that we are going to send a lot of traffic your way. Hopefully more for the support than for the need.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes. And if you have any wounds to wisdom that you would like to share, please do so. I would love to hear it.
I guess whenever you think you're going through something, no matter what it may be, and you think you're the only person in this world who can relate to what you're doing, how you're feeling right now, and no one else understands, just know that there are a million other people who are going through exactly what you're doing and what you're going through. And if you just have the courage to speak up, to be vulnerable, even if it may seem scary, it's going to be much, much better for you mentally and emotionally.
And also, if you ever feel like you're really angry and frustrated with the people around you or with society, like channel that into something you can actually like, so that you can build something out of it. I think anger, a lot of us view it as like a very negative and destructive emotion, but you can channel it into building something like a nonprofit or a project to try and fix the wrongs you see instead of just being more angry about it and like lashing out. Just try to channel it into something productive and you will be astounded by the results you see.
I love it. Wow. You ladies are amazing. I look forward to the development of this app and all the support that you're going to get. And we will definitely have a follow-up interview later on this year. Let's plan on that. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if you want to collectively do something, I'm open to that as well. I'm about making a difference.
That would be great.
That sounds so awesome. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for like giving us the channel to just do this amazing thing. Thank you so much for all your work.
Thanks so much. This opportunity will be great for exposure.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for all your hard work and for what you're doing. Thank you. Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Make sure to scan the QR code. Make sure